I think that's the thing. I almost go back to Laura and Cathy. Sometimes I want, or I would love to call in, and maybe I'm the one that needs to make it. It's like some type of a workbook, right? We've got the 12 guiding spiritual principles. Yeah. Can we walk through those for a second before I go on with this question?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. What would you like? You would like us to list the 12?
Yeah. Is there an order that they go in? Is there an order for a reason? What are they? What do they do? What do they serve as?
Well, the order starts with honesty. Right? Honesty, hope, surrender, courage, willingness, acceptance, humility, forgiveness, compassion, resilience, gratitude, joy.
Mm-hmm. Why do we start with honesty?
Without that, you don't have much.
You argue with reality, you lose every time.
And if you don't know how you feel, honesty, we, present as a process of how do I feel and what do I need? Mm-hmm. If we don't know that, we don't have like a leg to stand on in a way. That's how we
That's like the grounding point.
That's
right?
how we can know what do we want, what are our values, what's the response. You want to talk about the space between stimulus and response. It's a process of honest inquiry.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're not going to continuously react to something, we actually have to stop and pause and ask ourselves the truth of what is happening in this moment. And usually the feelings are the first thing that's overriding the system. So we have to acknowledge what's the feeling, and it's not who I am, but it's happening. Okay, it's moving through me. And then the needs are the thing that is the doorway through to possibility. Right. And that's hope.
Right.
And hope is like, it's opening to infinite possibility. We have no idea what it's going to look like. We're not attached to the outcome. Right. But we have values. We know some things that we want, Freddie. Right. Like for you, wellness has been a motivating force for you that came out of all the illness, right? And you might now be in a process of transition. You're like, oh, I'm in this, I don't know, you did this thing. You've achieved so much wellness.
He's at the ceiling of that
so
box.
You're sort of here now and you're going, okay, now what? What's next? That's exciting. It's uncomfortable.
But it's a yes and.
It's a yes and. It's exciting.
Yeah. Is there any other of the 12 guiding spiritual principles that you think are really important to not that they're not all important, right? They're all like equally weighted. We could argue on like a periodic table.
Well, I know what. Well,
she knows what I'm going to say.
I know what she's going to say.
Well, let me ask specifically how they fall in the timeline. Do you feel there's a process, there's an order of operations that is very useful in using these as a tool?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. One informs the other and builds.
There are a few you could flip,
or they're twin principles.
Like willingness and acceptance,
or forgiveness and compassion.
Yeah, for sure. Gratitude and joy. The thing is that it depends on the person, because we all have our unique.
We bring our own life experience with us, and everything that has contributed to the perspective that we're carrying at the time. So we're going to have different resonant points, right?
In 4 years of practicing this, and I will just say I found nonviolent communication 15 years ago. So I read the books, I understood it up here, I tried to practice it here and there. Thought I was kind of, good at it or whatever. But
you're woke.
I wasn't even doing it really. I was like, thinking I was doing it.
And I learned it in a spiritual leadership program much later than you, but it was
until we actually made it a process that we were doing each day and teaching and living and sharing and all the things. Then it radically changed everything, because the principles, the process of the feelings and needs informs the principles as we go. So for me, what made a very huge difference was the principle of humility, because my previous understanding of humility was very limited. And that's the way it goes with these principles.
Yeah,
people come to Be Loved Now, especially the people who have been meditating their whole lives, and maybe they've lived in ashrams or spiritual communities, or they've done the work, and a lot of therapists come, and they all have like this idea, oh, I think I'm pretty good with all this. And what we hear again and again is, oh my God, I had no idea. They go through a week of honesty and they're like, my mind is blown. My heart is blown. I am looking at this. We give all different perspective on it. So for me, humility, the thing was, I did not realize how personally I was taking things my whole life. So up until 4 years ago, I didn't understand that that was my like operating system, kind of like, I would take something someone said or a behavior or whatnot, and my reaction would be, how could they do that? I would never do that to someone. I created a whole thing around it in my marriage, with my children, when they left dishes in the sink, all the things. And so for me, it was really practicing this understanding of humility, of not going against myself, not taking my own bullshit personally. And not taking yours, understanding that I cannot do you, I can only do me. Humility continues on the daily to bring me so much joy, I cannot even tell you. And I laugh. I really laugh at myself, because I can feel an old tendency, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I lived like that, because it's just such a limited way to live.
And it's
victim. So that's for me. Everybody's different. Some people are like, oh my God, joy. I never had joy in my life, whatever it is. But I think it's the way in which we have been sort of programmed, the events that have happened to us.
Totally.
And then a guiding spiritual principle comes along that just, oh, wow, the clouds have now parted.
In the second program of Be Loved Now, the second rollout, so we launched in the spring of 2020. And so we had a spring program that ran through the middle of the summer. And then we had a program that started in that September of that year. And I was journaling. The first week of the program is honesty. It was doing readings on honesty from an interfaith, interspiritual lens. So different vantage points every day, doing a short reading and then journaling questions. And I was journaling on honesty. Remember, I'm a veteran of 12-step, honest about admitting things and acknowledging things. I'm journaling on honesty, and I realize that I'm journaling this pretty much. I have this hit that I realize that I think I'm journaling exactly what I journaled on honesty the first time in the program. And I had this moment of like, what's that about? And I broke through, and I realized there was a moment where I realized, what am I not saying? And I looked deeper, and it uncovered this whole pattern that I have, that I learned in my family, that I think a lot of women learn in our culture, which is pretending everything is fine, making it okay, and feeling hyper responsible for my partner's emotional comfort or discomfort. That was huge for me. And I quote unquote, thought I was an honest person. I don't lie, I don't steal, but I also wasn't looking deeper beneath the surface of what was really true. So I would say honesty for me is what's one of the things about Be Loved Now, being in community and the practice of feelings and needs. Honesty is like definitely a game changer for me, because it's a doorway into my own vulnerability, which I guarded for so many years. Right. Keeping me from the very thing that I most want, which is deep abiding love and connection with myself and other people and in my community. Yeah. So I would say number one is honesty. Humility for me is also big, and forgiveness, like letting go of the burden of carrying all that shit of my ledgers of injustice.
Yeah.
It's liberating.
Being liberated so that I have my own truth. And actually it's a practice of freedom for me.
Yeah. Beautiful. It's so exciting that to know the power of this work, and to know that for many people it can be, man, I listen to people's problems all the time and I just say, wow, this could be really powerful for you if you're ready, if this is something you want to look at.
And I know, and Freddie, I'm just going to say right there, we have recently come to a place where we have a lot of people saying, I don't know if I'm ready. And I actually don't think it's about being ready.
It's about being willing.
Mm-hmm.
They're really two different energies.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Like I just stood on a cliff to jump into cold water in the Arkansas River with my, 19-year-old son.
Yeah.
And I was scared, and it was high, and
it was a drop.
It took me a couple moments to like, we did a video,
and you had to jump in a certain way, not to get swept away down the wrong fork of the river.
And there was a moment where I kept saying, I'm not ready. I said, stop the camera. I'm not ready. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm willing. It's not about being ready. I'm actually probably never going to be ready to jump off that rock. I am willing to just go for it. Mm-hmm. And that's what shifted. And I feel like I'm using that example because I think this I'm not ready keeps people from exploring a willingness. And some people in the program will say, how come willingness isn't the first principle? And that's where you can start to kind of play with different things.
Yeah,
but
you're willingly. Are you
willing?
Are you honest? Are you honest enough to be to admit that you're willing or not?
You could play around with all of them.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily matter. That's why we have them in a spiral, because it's like they're always kind of like looping around on themselves, and you can see sort of how they relate to
what
each
their
other.
relationships are.
But ultimately, I think there's such a interesting thing when you say to someone, "Are you willing?"
It shifts.
Because when you ask people, "Are you ready?" a lot of times the answer is no.
The answer is,
and you
like,
say,
no.
"Would you be willing?" We say that a lot. Would you be willing to repeat back to me what you heard me say? Would you be willing to make an agreement? And that is, if you ask someone, "Are you ready?" a lot of times they're like, well, I'm not ready. Now's not the right time. So willing, it's like just opening up the heart a tiny bit. Are you willing to meet me here?
Just a little bit is all you need.
Yeah. I, as an avoidant attachment style human being, when someone tells me, they're like, I'm doing this at this time, is that okay? And I'm always like, ugh, no, you already told me what you're doing. Now you're asking me if I'm okay with it. So I feel like put upon as a person. I'm like, no, I want to be the one to say, I'm willing, or I agree. Not you tell me what you're doing, and then I'm either going to like strap in and take it, or I'm going to pull away. Because it's really interesting, the nuance of language. Somebody asked me the other day, Lauren Sambataro, the Biohacker Babes, he said, what's your most powerful biohack? I was like, language. 100%.
I love that answer.
100%. There's nothing stronger. It's just, it has a vibration. You set the tone to your story. You set yourself up as a hero or a victim or the villain. And you're the person choosing the narrative day after day after day. Right. So what is the story you want to tell?
And that's probably why the feelings and needs really speak to you.
Yeah.
Because it's all about the language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And creating something new.
Yeah.
The clarity and the awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. I've witnessed, because I use them all the time and have friends do them. And when we play with these words, and obviously there's other communities that use similar tools, NVC, nonviolent communication. And it's interesting how it can be an inhibitor sometimes because it's so clunky for people, and they really get caught up on the tool. Like they're just not sure. Like, I just know I don't know how to swing the hammer. So in needing to meet people where they're at, I found, sometimes you just need to approach it a different way. And you need to understand that it's not an absolute, and it's a process, and it'll be clunky until it's not. I remember feeling very just almost like, wait, I know there's worksheets that I'm supposed to be referencing from as I use this internal language, and I don't know them, or I don't know the extent of the diversity, so I would almost freeze.
Mm.
Do you ever experience people doing that? They're like, I would just get flustered that I'm like, I'm not doing it right. I would be very attached to wanting to be,
totally.
some degree of have some efficacy as my human design yields, that I would freeze.
Right. But
And
that's
so
why
it
it's
took,
called practice.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's why it's called the
thing,
practice.
and
Yeah.
you would know, being a Broadway person, that you're not going to sing and dance like those people on the stage
the first time.
You are not. You are not.
You are not.
You are
You're
not. No.
And to have community to reflect back to and support you in the process is gold.
Yeah.
So we have people that text us all the time, like grads and people that have been that are either currently in programs or have been in programs. They're like, I'm in this kind of situation, I'm really working on this thing. And we'll say, send us your feelings and needs statement. And then they'll send it and they'll ask, like, would you be able to help me out with, I'm having trouble settling on the thought. Like,
it's usually the facts.
It's usually the facts in the beginning. So when you help them get straight on what the statement is, then they're able to drop into the feelings. And then they're on track to figure out the needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the facts, ma'am. Have you ever thought about Be Loved Now card game?
This has come up before.
We have lots of ideas.
Yeah, we do.
I think about it all the time. I was like, there's something nice about playing cards, and you're shuffling the deck, and you're making your hand. You're like, this feeling, this feeling, this feeling. But it's almost like you would need. I gotta bring it up. Okay, it's almost like you would need. So imagine there's needs, right? There's needs under meaning, needs under safety, needs under divinity. I'll just give you 3 of the examples. It's almost like you would need the meaning cards to be blue and the safety cards to be green. You'd need a system in which you're like, well, I already did a green card. Now give me a meaning card. Have you looked at safety? And really, you'd have to really think about it. But I've often thought, oh, wouldn't this be fun? Because sometimes I feel like the energetics of how do I want to say this? Sometimes I feel like this works. Sometimes if there is no willingness, it is lost on the older population. Like, I would love to do this work with kids. I'd love if kids had an expanded emotional vocabulary, and you witness, because sometimes you'll hang out with people's kids. You're like, oh my God, they're amazing. Oh my God, these kids are a nightmare. Right. And you hear them. There is no, like, they're in like, when they put the bumper lanes in the pool game, there's like nowhere to go. They're like ding, 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 ding. I was like, these kids just need to experience a broader emotional intelligence. And what would that look like?
Yeah,
broader vocabulary.
I used to bring it into the Waldorf school, and they have cards. NBC has cards, so I would bring in the cards, and they could look at the cards on the table and pick the feelings and pick the needs. I was thinking it, and kids do great with it. It's amazing how kids pick it up super quickly.
Yeah.
I was just thinking as you were talking about the card game, and we should do this sometime when we're together, like brainstorm a card game. Because when we're in person, it's like boop, boop, boop. But I was thinking, like, what if you had like a spinny dial or something like that, and you had the guiding spiritual principles, and like the arrow landed on a principle, so you didn't get to pick the principle. The principal picked you, and then there was a question around and then the card you had to deal with the cards, right? So it's like forgiveness. You got some question.
And then you had to pick a card.
Like, what was the hardest time you ever had to forgive someone, or is there someone?
That's really good.
And then you had to pick. Okay, now pick 3 feelings that describe, or something. Yeah. Because then you could incorporate all the things into it, and make it very applicable. Anyway, I got my brains going now, friend.
I like that.
Yeah, we just need to map it. I have a couple of game makers here that do cards, and they do that for a living.
Oh, that's so cool.
But I think, if you can build it into a practice, if it's some way gamified, if there can be like a little, if it can be fun, there's a little bit of checks and balances, a reward system, something to that nature.
Right.
I love playing Monopoly.
I love playing all games.
Yeah. It used to be fun. It's been a long time since I played Monopoly. We used to play Operation. Of course, we love that analogy, the fallacy that we pull out broken femur bone and client is healed. I just found an Operation game the other day in a used store. I should have bought it. It was like $2.
So much fun.
Yeah. Hungry Hippo, another good one. Do you remember Hungry Hippo?
No, I don't know.
Oh, Hungry Hippo was a loud game. You're like whack, 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 whack. There's marbles rolling around, and you're hitting your hippo butt, and the mouth opens, and the marbles are trying to roll into the hippo mouth.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that's a really good one too. But I think about how much time we spent as children. Really, we were just so we just always in a state of play. And now I see kids don't have that. They're the screens and the digital engagement and the iPads that are become really like a babysitter because it zones their intention in their right. They're locked into that screen. I was like, whoa, what a good sitter. But I do think there's a cost to that as far as like the creativity and expansion of a child's mind. I mean, we could, not to get people heated about it, but like what could be the fix in some of these different ways to bring back a game that is also educational, that's also solving a bigger problem, right?
Getting in touch with your feelings is a major thing that most kids don't learn. So I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I never learned it. We didn't talk about feelings.
That's just what we were saying in the earlier part of the podcast. You expect that you should know how you feel and what you need, but it's not like this innate knowing. We don't think it's an innate knowing. It's actually a learned skill, and that's why it needs to be modeled and taught. Yeah,
that is noble. Yeah, even I've been doing all these interviews with the Biomed Center and the Marion Institute. I'm interviewing Dr. Tom Dickinson on Thursday, Dr. Rao, that from Paracelsus. That
I know Dr. Rao very well.
Right, all these cool people, right, and this idea of biological medicine or bioregulatory. It has this energy of holism. It's like everything, your dietary temperaments, your family history, what happened to you preconception. Yes, what is your blood chemistry doing, but also your genetics and your epigenetics. How is your genome, your genetic expression, affected by outside world? How are you removing things? I love that the language that they use about. I'm doing this course right now through the Marion Institute, which is an intro course for biological medicine. It's 10 hours. But the idea of, even when they frame heavy metal toxicity, it's like, well, what's a metal? It's something other than self. And how does the body process something other than self to remove it from the tissue in a non-harmful way? How is that process hindered by emotions, environments? How are you set up genetically to process something other than self by what was passed down from your parents? And it really starts to loop everything into, wow, this it's a beautiful story of this. You're healing what your parents didn't heal, right? You're healing, you understand it. You're like, it sounds like such a woo-woo thing to say, I'm healing generations forward and backwards. But when you're doing this work, you're healing different generations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And in this nonlinear, have we just decided like yesterday that the universe is twice as old as we thought it was before. There'll be some point where like, well, did it really start?
Right. Right. Was there actually a start?
When did time start? Yeah, the big questions. I don't think we can answer that on this podcast. I would like to just touch on. I know we're long in our time.
Yeah.
And do you have another engagement?
12:30. You have a few more minutes.
You have a few more minutes. Well, let's just touch on Lyme disease and biotoxin illness, since we have such a big experience with that. You both being based in Connecticut, the epicenter of Lyme disease. Certainly not the beginning of Lyme disease, because we've now found spirochetes back in Neanderthals' bone tissue and fun things like that. But modern day Lyme it's exploding. It's an epidemic for sure. We both have experience with AMP coil. AMP coil is, in case this is your first podcast, AMP coil is is a tool that works with the energetic body, delivers pulsed electromagnetic waves and sound therapy or frequency therapy to help harmonize disruptions in the body. Disruptions could be microbes, metals, or toxins. Cathy, can you just give us like a 1 to 1.5 minute overview of your experience? Is Lyme your dark night of the soul? Question number 1. Let's do that one first.
Oh God, Freddie, that's a hard.
That's a hard one.
Yes, and I would say my whole family was affected by it. I mean, I got my first tick bite that I know of. I think I probably had it as a kid because I grew up on the North Shore of Long Island, and I had mono and Epstein-Barr and all the things. I was never quite healthy, you know. Scott, my husband used to joke that he got a lemon because I was sick. I was sick a lot, and frail and not so. Anywho, I got bit by my first tick when I got pregnant with my first child, with Quinn. So that was many, many, many years of sickness. I've had every tick-borne illness, and I'm a muscle through it kind of person. So I just would keep going. I tried antibiotics, but I ended up with naturopaths and all the things. But what really, really challenged me was when my kids got sick. So that's a hard one. And
especially
Quinn and Allie, both of them, one after the other. And so we did everything. We spent lots of money. We went to all over, went to Switzerland, went to Dr. Rao's clinic, all the things. And I would say the amp coil was the shift. That was what I could say overall. Mm-hmm. Laura bought it for our family as a gift because we were really struggling at the time, and it was under our Christmas tree when we got back from Switzerland from the clinic. And I'm not saying that those things didn't also help.
Yeah.
But it was we just started turning the amp coil on. Quinn would say, I don't know what that is. I just feel better when I'm on it. And I did, and Allie did. And then like about 4 to 6 months later, it was just this like, wow, I'm feeling really good. Wow, I'm not as tired anymore. Wow, what's going on here? And I just started leaning into the technology. What is this thing really doing? Yeah. Because I wasn't even running cleanses online yet. I didn't even know what I was doing. So, fast forward, we did the Lyme study with the 12 people. I went to the, to the summit and really learned. I'm a very good student and I'm very coachable. So if I find something that's of interest to me, I'm like, okay, teach me. Mm-hmm. And I learned. And so then that's how you and I met, Freddie, through that. And so here we are many years later. I've seen so many people shift and be helped, and not just with Lyme. Yeah. I mean, the latest ones, I just did a testimonial with this woman, Heather, who has carrying around oxygen. She has lung COPD. And it's like now she's like, they're telling her it's the equivalent. She's jogging the equivalent of 3 miles and she's not using any oxygen. When I met her, she would have to take the oxygen with her at the top of the stairs.
And she's like 70.
I don't know exactly how old she is. But anywho, she's going to come on the call. Mm-hmm. Are you running the Yeah. So she'll come on the call so you can really get into it. But I'm just saying, for me, the amp coil, I don't know what the percentage is, but I feel like it can really get people like 80-85%.
This is what we found with the study.
Yeah. And then, but we must deal with the underlying emotional imbalance.
So during that Lyme study that was done at the barn that Cathy was running, we were doing spiritual counseling with the people, and the ones that were really willing to do the work,
and they're the ones underneath the hood.
They're the ones that got better.
Yeah,
because we're treating them as a whole.
No. And it's kind of like what you're saying. You can have all the devices in the world. I mean, you've seen all the people with all the things, and they're still stuck.
They're still stuck in the story and in the old belief system that they can't heal or nothing's going to work.
Yeah, and if we're coming to the shared reality that all these things are happening for us, then why would the architect of existence, why would it allow you to have a box that just is the easy button to alleviate pain and suffering? It's like, it's like, yeah, sure, it's there to create a shift.
Right.
And we can have an alleviation of symptoms, but then there needs to be a deeper understanding about the whys and the hows and the whats. And
and to add to that, the thing with the amp coil that's so interesting, it's like I've incorporated it into my daily life. It is something we travel with. It is, so it feels to me that if you think about the principles of, resonance, entrainment, this kind of thinking, it would make sense that you keep sort of tuning in. That's why we call it becoming. Yeah. It's not like a one and done or a 10 and done or people say to me sometimes, well, why would I want to buy a device that I was addicted to? I'm like, that is the complete opposite way that I look at it. I look at it like as valuable as my meditation practice, right? It's another aspect of frequency medicine. Meditation is frequency medicine. Yeah. So it's like, I see it. I see the people who really take it and use it and are curious about it and continue to want to learn and up level. And they really shift and change their lives, right? I see people who are looking outside of themselves for the answer. And they're like, oh, well, I stopped using the coil, or it doesn't work anymore, or whatever. And it's like, then if you lean in with them and you just get them to start using it, they're like, oh, actually, I am feeling better.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting thing about, do you have a growth mindset? Yeah, are you curious? Are you going to use the tool for your own awakening and expansion?
Or are you going to go back to sleep?
Yeah, it's funny. It's I like a toothbrush would work. It's like, no, the toothbrush, it's always going to brush your teeth. It's like, it doesn't mean you're not going to get a cavity.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're not going to get, toothbrushing doesn't
guarantee
alleviate all dental things for your lifetime. It doesn't do it. It doesn't do it. Not just brushing your teeth. It's like there's a lot going on. There's genetics. There's like mineral density, there's like acidity of the body, there's gingivitis, there's the oral microbiome. So it's what I like to say is, with these tools, ice, magnetics, lights, oxygen, breathwork, hyperbarics, lymphatic drainage, they work every time. Every time. You don't stop those. I don't think we don't stop the magnetic wave from driving circulation or spinning electrons. You never stop it. It's always going to work. It's what your experience is. That's going to be different, because as a human being, all the things I do, we just mentioned the different ways in which we color or embody the skin suit. It's like, it's infinitely different than Freddie is, than Cathy, than Laura. So you shouldn't generally see the same result. It's just like if I said, everybody pick up this 25-pound weight and assuming we're all going to get the same hormetic stressor. It's the same weight. Are our biceps going to grow the same? No. Hell no. Right? Hell no. And it's really hard to separate the variables. Like, were you in the full range of extension when you did do the work? Was there protein or amino acids present to do the rebuilding of the micro tears of the muscle? Like, I could go on and on and on about variables, why people don't get the workout results that they want. I could go on and on. But I think I want to tie it back into the 12 guiding spiritual principles and this work of truly understanding and a deep knowing of why you do you, why you show up as the way you do. It really does give you a great base of the pyramid to build off of that I don't think anything else does.
Well, nothing that I found, so we created it. I mean, that's
exactly right.
We've been meditating for God knows how many years, yoga, we went to ministry, and all of those things are a part of what we're offering. It's just what we lacked. And I mean, I can just speak for myself. And I said this on a discovery call. Yeah. And I'm trying to hone it more, but it's like, we created the program that we wanted, that I have been meditating, but I also need accountability. I like to do the feelings and needs, but if I don't have someone to do them with, I'm not going to grow because I'm going to just be manufacturing and buying my own bullshit as normal. So I need the other actually to reflect back to me, because it's in relationship that I wake up. I'm like, oh boy, that was, I got triggered, or what am I? So the guiding spiritual principles are this incredible opportunity if applied, if embodied,
and I think implemented, integrated,
and with others,
with other people.
And that's why I keep showing up and Be Loved Now. That's why I keep doing the work. And I look forward to the next program that runs, because we do it along with everybody.
We were just talking about this morning. Can't wait till September when BLN 8 begins on September 18th, because then we'll be back in that daily practice of accountability in community.
Now, we're still meditating for sure. But I just said to her, like, I haven't journaled in like 8 days or 9 days, whatever. And I look forward to having the container created with a group of people. It feels really good to me.
It furthers the self-inquiry. I really do believe that.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I celebrate the work that you're doing in the world. Tell me how people would find you and the work and the course and a way in.
There's a couple ways to find us. First of all, our website, www.belovednow.org. All of our program information, bios to find out about us, our retreat information, scheduling with us for discovery calls, information calls, spiritual counseling, all of that is on the website. We're also on social, so Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is Be Loved Now. Instagram is Be Loved Now Tribe.
Great.
That's it. That's how you can find us.
Great. And give me a little, you said the timeline for your next Be Loved Now 8. What are we now? It's July. We're recording on July 26th. We will we'll probably get this out in a couple weeks.
We did our first discovery call last night for the Be Loved Now programs, Be Loved Now 8, which is starting on September 18th. We have another discovery call on August 28th.
Monday.
Great.
And all that information is on our website.
Great. And is it full yet?
No,
not
it's
yet.
Early.
It's early.
People sign up for programs like this. Some sign up early.
Yeah.
But most sign up a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks before, within the month, usually. And the timing of this, we're coming off of summer and there'll be Labor Day. So we're aware of the fact that we started our discovery calls early because
give people time.
Give people time to check into their willingness.
Check into their willingness. I'm not ready. I'm not quite willing. I like that. I really like the humility too. The humility that really resonates with me is the humility and understanding it's not about me. Other people's responses and voices and the way they act out in the world or lean into the world is not about me.
I kind of feel the thing
people struggle.
It's so powerful, that one in particular. I don't know if it's the time that we're living in and the social media component of everything and this like frenetic, like, because everything is so like boop, 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 Twitter and this and that, like the things we used to not be, we didn't know what was going on all over, right? We had to wait to get news a certain amount of time. And now it's like that part of it, humility seems to speak to the pause to me. This idea of a sacred pause or the pause between stimulus and response.
Widening the gap.
It widens the gap enough for me. I'm a fiery Aries person, and so I can be reactive, and so for me, so for me, it's like, okay, so hold on a second. Let me take a pause.
Pin in there.
Right, I'm taking this personally. What's really going on for me? So then it brings me back into honesty.
Yeah.
And I think I imagine a world. Could you imagine if we lived in a world where everybody actually practiced that? That it's not that it's not a reflection of me. It's actually not from that space that we go, oh, that's nothing about but really like, okay, wait, I'm taking it personally. I mean, I think war might not happen. That's where I go with it.
Yeah. Again, I want to go back to the word practice, right? We practice it because I think our tendency, we said earlier that there is a 90% of the thoughts are unconscious. So in practice, I think we can attempt to steer the boat towards a world that may have less war. I don't think, again, I think it's nice. I think it's idealistic, but I think at the end of the day, it's like the pain, the suffering, the hardship, the activation makes coloring to witness. It's like, oh, here's what I don't want to be. Here's what I want to be in love. I want to be radically. I want to bring in the humility in my observations of other people. I want to bring in empathy. I want to be radically honest with myself, and I'm navigating this day. So I think it's that practice, but I think it's like, the story, Cathy, of the little soul. It's like, if you don't have a little soul that pops into the body to be your antagonist, how can you ever have the human experience be very dynamic? It'd be very bland if we walked around like heaven on earth. And I think, again, that's a fairy tale that we're sold within storybooks. From my lived experience, it's going to be colored and painful, and there will be terrible things that happen. But I think that's what makes the beauty.
I think terrible things could still happen and we could not have war. But I'm just saying, I'm a pacifist.
Oh,
but
I'm right there with you. I hope for that.
A teacher of ours said to us, everything is either love or a call for love.
Yeah, it's a love for a call for love. But even if you look at the, I think it's funny, the stories in movies that we witness often, they're a reflection of what we're dealing with. Like, look at the Marvel series. Do you ever watch the Marvel superheroes? That one, you're like, you have this thing and there's a conflict and they come to the end and everything's good. But then there's another villain, they come to the end and then they're in another universe. And then there's a multiverse. And then it's like...
There's good guys and there's bad guys. It's pretty polarizing, but it's very simplistic in that sense.
Yeah. And the story goes on. Right? The story goes on. So there certainly are, if we walk into a library, there's an infinity number of books we can pick up and choose to read. And I think I'd love to close with the idea of, well, it might not feel like it all the time. We have the ability to at least choose the verbiage and the text that we're using in my story. And other than that, there's not a lot of control.
Choose it and take responsibility.
That's what we say. Our response is always our responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I celebrate the work that you're doing. I love for how accessible and how human you are. I think for me, it's nice to see people go off the rails and judge other people and get really ugly and do imperfect things. I was like, oh my goodness, thank God you're real.
Oh yeah, we are very real.
We could do another podcast about this. Sometimes, I'm in this little Austin, Texas. Everybody's like a healer. They're, a self-proclaimed. I hate that word. I'm like, nobody's healing anything. It's your body doing it. We're just mirroring, in my experience. But you get a lot of I have found sometimes this world of cultivating wellness, it's like people know enough to be dangerous. And within that space where you're always living in the light, you get some really dark moments and some dark personality traits that show themselves, and in an unwillingness to be fully human.
Yeah.
Anyways,
power with or power over, baby. It's from the beginning of time. Yeah.
From the beginning of time.
We choose power with. That's what we choose again and again.
Well, I'm glad we stuck with it, even though we had a rocky minute and 30-second initial recording one that nobody will ever hear.
Bravo to you. Bravo to us.
Thanks, Freddie. It's always an enlightening and exciting conversation.
It certainly is.
Yeah. We have some action steps. The least being a card game.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm up for it.
That'll be really fun.
Yeah.
I love you guys. I will talk to you soon. Big love. Bye.
Bye, love.